All right, I'm here to pick Anton's brain again about some development and
Amen,
investing.
brother man.
Okay, let's just get into it.
Yep.
First, let's do me a favor and break down your process for evaluating a property for development from start to offer.
Start to offer. Well, first we have to create a list of suspects. So, I mean, most of the problem I think a lot of investors run into is they're only going to go look at one property. I think you should create a list of suspects, turn those suspects into leads, take those leads and then evaluate those leads into opportunities. What happens most of the time is people start with a net that's just plain too small to begin with. And they go, well, I can't find enough deals. Well, you're not casting a wide enough net. So number one, cast a wide net when we're looking for the deals. Two, we have to decide what the end product is going to be for this development project. So if we're sitting there looking at it and we know that we're going to build townhomes here, and that's its highest and best use. So the next question becomes real quickly, how many units do I think we could get on this for townhomes? Then, okay, we need to just run a simple calculation. And the simple calculation is we go to the use table and the permitted uses based on the zoning, what's the maximum density I can get? And you figure out the density per acre. So let's just say it's 18 units an acre in this zoning. And we have 2 acres. 2 times 18. And then take away 25% for roads, sidewalks, angles, things like that. In some situations, if it's not a nice shaped lot, you may lose 35%. So the assumption we're making right out the gate is that we're going to be able to cover 100% of this, which is untrue for a lot of properties in Washington because of the wetlands. So then we have to make some type of quick, educated guess based on wetlands here, in the greater Seattle metro. We do that by going and looking at planning and development services, and then looking under their permits that have previously been applied for. We're going to try to find a permit that had a critical area site plan that is just adjacent to the subject property. So if I have a parcel right here that we're analyzing, and if I could find the one right next to it, and it's got an old critical area site plan on that, I can assume the same wetland continues across both.
Just like we talked about last week.
Then, just draw on it with a pen and paper, print the map out, grab your scale, draw a box on it real quick, and try to figure out how much square footage you have left. It's an approximation, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect. People want to do this perfect. Screw perfect. Get it done. Like, the action's more important. So figure out what the buildable area is, then run that calculation on the per acre highest density, then take away 25 to 30% for roads and things like that.
Perfect.
So we're kind of backing into this. What I want to know is, what's my finished building pad worth right there? Once I know what the finished building pad is worth, then, okay, how many building pads can I get? Then I go, okay, how much is it going to cost to develop each one of these lots? And then what we do is we keep spreadsheets for these things. So on a regular basis, we call local builders, local developers, and we say, hey, Phil, I see you got this townhome project over here on 123 Main Street. How's that going? And they go, yeah, it's going good. Hey, if you don't mind me asking, what was the development cost approximately? Now, not everyone's going to tell you, but when you build a bunch of friendships and relationships and networks, those network people will tell you, oh, this is costing us approximately this much. Because we have to know, what does it cost to build the product on a price per square foot basis? And then how much does it cost to develop the land? So in other words, when we get the civil drawings approved, how much does it take to build in all the infrastructure? So going back to the townhome example, we know that the townhomes depending on topography and things like that, are going to cost us between $70,000 to $130,000 a unit for those townhomes in our area. Okay, more slope, more money.
No, so that's a 70 to 100,000 for the building itself, or for
The dirt
prepping?
pad.
Okay, prepping this. Okay.
Yes. So what happens is we start to figure out, okay, my finished lot is worth X minus, let's just say, 70 grand, minus my holding cost, minus my cost to develop it, minus my profit, equals what I can pay. And what we do is see, yes, developers, they have giant pro formas, but we have to try to keep it simple, stupid, because we're still in the napkin math phase, right? So in the napkin math phase, we're just going, okay, what's the finished lot worth? Great, it's going to take me a year and a half to 2 years to get there. Holding costs for 2 years, minus the cost to do it, minus my 25% with a 10 to a 15% contingency, okay, equals what I can pay.
Okay.
Okay. Another
Absolutely.
way to flip that around is, I know we've looked at some of these other projects, but we keep spreadsheets running in all the cities of what everyone else is paying and what they're tying stuff up for. So if they're tying it up in the raw for townhomes at 40 grand a unit, we know we can't pay more than 40 grand a unit, because it's not going to magically sell for more just because we chose the site. So we also need to keep track of, basically, once again, simple Google Doc or Excel spreadsheet of what's everyone paying, once again, for the townhome example, in the raw, at pre-app, at site plan approval, at civil construction drawing approval, and at the structurals. Because each one of those entitlement phases, someone's going to pay a little bit more. If we know a couple of these numbers, we can make a quick guess, which then allows us to make the offer. And of course, the lower the better.
I'm seeing a pattern there. Yeah.
And though, part of what we do is we want to be good citizens, okay? So one of our rules is don't be greedy, okay? We're not going to skin someone alive, even if we could. We're going to pay them a fair value. So I tease when I say the lower the better, but we're still going to pay someone a fair value. We have to leave meat on the bone to ensure that us or whoever is the final purchaser can get through the project. So don't be greedy during that process. But to kind of circle back around and give you the whole thing again, it's knowing my development costs. It's knowing at what phase of entitlement, what other people are paying. Then all we have to do is make a quick calculation to figure out the density, and we know what we can pay.
I like it. This is about that. That one sentence was all that.
Yes. And I was trying to give us more detail and color,
no.
because what happens is in these development projects, there's a lot of nuance to them. So we looked at one in Marysville up on the hill, and the stormwater vault was such a giant concrete box, and it had such a big retaining wall, it was no longer economically feasible to even develop this, because it would cost too much. You'd be better off to just never develop that property the way it's designed and just go buy existing lots from someone else and build them. So the thing that investors and builders and developers have to be so careful of is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And you have to include your time as a portion of your calculation to figure out, should I do this? Because people always discount their time, when the reality is you're going to sink thousands of hours into one of these. So don't discount your time, because you're going to put a bunch of time and effort into it. You may be better off just to go buy a finished lot if the profit's not big enough.
Makes sense. That's kind of a good segue into what we're going to talk about next.
Yes.
So what is the most frequent mistake people make for looking at property to develop?
They underestimate how long it's going to take and how much money it's going to take. So to use this old investor colloquialism in relation to land development, Phil, it's going to take you more money, It's going to take longer and more heartache and headache than you're thinking right now. Any number that you're thinking, needs you to multiply it by 4. Great. If that number still works, do it. Now, we're going to the extreme when we say that, but every development project will cost more money. It will be harder, and it will take longer than people anticipate. And so what happens is they go in undercapitalized with a shorter time frame, no contingencies. And what I mean by that is no financial contingency. A developer must maintain a 10% financial contingency on his or her project, because it's not if something is going to go wrong, it's when will it go wrong. Because as it goes wrong, and it's a $2,000 problem. Well, a $2,000 problem across 40 lots is a lot of money.
Absolutely.
And that's what it is in a development project, your problems multiply exponentially. So you build in, we like a 10 to a 15% contingency, because something will break. On one of our other projects, the water line had to be moved. That moving of the water line was a $60,000 problem. That's a big number. No contingency. It's coming out of your pocket or your profit.
So if you're listening, contingency. Because, I mean, you mentioned it 3 times last week and 2 to 3 times already today. So build a buffer.
Build a buffer. Plan for the worst, hope for the best, because the funniest things happen. Giant rocks, water pulling the soil down, bad soil, trash. On one, there was trash. We didn't dig our test holes beforehand, and we started digging down, and someone had used the property like a landfill. And so we ended up having to excavate out, it was about a 1/4 acre of just junk.
Garbage. Terrible.
And it was garbage. It was refrigerators, it was tires, it was containers, washers, dryers. Like, I think this guy took every appliance he had ever owned for every rental and threw them in a hole.
I'll never understand some people. Oh, man. Okay. So what is your process for feasibility for a rural lot?
So when we're thinking about a rural lot here in, Western Washington, and this is going to work pretty much everywhere, but we have more wetlands than most people. So our first one is, what does the wetlands look like? Where are they located? What category of wetlands are they? Because the category of wetlands and the location of the wetlands will determine the buffer and what's called the buildable area. At the end of the day, all we care about is, do we have enough land to accomplish what we want? If we're going to build one house, cool. Do I got enough room to squeeze one house on this 5-acre lot? And yes, that happens all over Washington. If you have 5 acres, you probably have anywhere between 1/3 of an acre to 2 that's usable. If you want 5 that's usable, you better go buy 10 or 20 to get, enough usable acreage. So first we go through the wetlands. Second thing we confirm is access. A lot of people believe that they see a road or a driveway that they have legal access to a property. This is a fundamental mistake that will cost you money. It's cost me money. A driveway does not mean you have legal access. You need to confirm an easement, access, whatever it may be. So wetlands first, access second. Number 3, lot status. All over the country, and definitely in Washington, you have stuff that has a parcel ID that does not have a legal building lot status attached to it. So zoning was put into effect in 1977 or 1979 in Washington. Before then, if you and I wanted to subdivide something, we just draw it on a napkin, stamp it, turn it in, it automatically subdivided it. So, and then after that, they had to go through the regular subdivision process. So you want to go to your local title company and to the city or the county and confirm the property you're looking at has legal lot status. and that you can build on it. Because you may find legal lot status where someone revoked its building rights.
How do they do that?
They can sign a piece of paper that says this property is no longer buildable. And they can essentially donate the building rights away or just protect it in the future. So there's things like conservation easements and other types of easements and entitlements that do those things. But just know, while I'm looking at lot status, I need to confirm, can I build on it? Next thing I'm looking for is where can I put the septic? So the septic system, the ground has to be able to perk for that. So one of the ways we like to do is, I don't like to pay for the full wetland report up front. Mm-hmm. I like to call our wetland guy and have him come out, walk it real quick, and give me the verbal. So I can pay him to come walk it. That's much cheaper than the report. And yes, that makes me spend a little money because I pay for the walk and the report. But that's a safety net. So we do the same thing for the drain field design. We ask the septic designer to stop by, dig some perk holes. Oh, cool. Do we like this? Great. Now we'll pay for the septic design. Septics have to be outside of a 100-foot radius from a well. And so the thing is as we're looking at that rural lot, that 5-acre piece, you need to go to the Department of Ecology and look at the wells that surround it. Mm-hmm. And then realize each one of those wells is dropping a radius onto your property, the one you're looking at. Your septic has to fit in there. Oh, now that I know where my septic is going, now I have to make my well fit inside of that same Rubik's Cube. Though, once I know where's my buildable area, where's the wetlands, do I have access, do I have lot status, where's my septic, where's my well going to go? Like, I'm starting to hit like the golden phase. Mm-hmm. The rest of the stuff's pretty easy. So next we want to check power. Same thing. Don't make the same mistake. Oh, I looked over there. There's a power line right there. I've got power. You probably do, but you might have to significantly upgrade the power, and that might be a super expensive cost. Mm-hmm. So we have 5 acres right over here in Lake Stevens. Power is, like, you can see it right from the driveway. To bring power across to 84th and down to the house is $30,000. Oof. So, and then sometimes it's as cheap as a few $1,000s, mm-hmm. but always mentally budget a few thousand. The next thing that you're going to do is a geotechnical report. Basically, they're going to pull some soil out of the ground and they're going to figure out what type of soil it is and what the soil stability is for that. Somewhere in there is, as I'm feeling comfortable, you need to pay for a survey. You need to make sure you have no lot encroachments. In other words, does a neighbor have a structure coming over? Generally speaking, a fence or like a barn or something like that could be encroaching. And then pick out your house plans and apply for your building permit. This whole process, we always budget at least $40,000, sometimes $50,000 to get it ready to rock and roll. On the cheap side, it's going to cost you at least $20,000 to $25,000 to get it ready. So we just always mentally budget $40,000, sometimes $50,000.
Okay, so how much of that is actually spent during the feasibility period?
We start spending money instantly. Mm-hmm. And I'm impatient. So once I start burning my cash, I want it back as fast as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. And because we're also looking to achieve a high internal rate of return. In other words, the velocity of the capital moving around a circle. So once we start burning cash, as I start getting more and more thumbs up, the wetland guy gives me a thumbs up, things like that, we're going to start going faster.
Makes sense.
So probably I would say minimum be prepared to burn $2,500. And at $2,500, you should know something.
Oh, see, and I expected the number to be higher than that when you said $40,000.
You can get you could get the wetland guy and the drain fill guy to both walk on site and figure some stuff out for that much money.
Oh, okay. And
maybe have a conversation with a engineer. And that's probably your biggest things when we're talking about these rural lots. And then once again, we're going to look for that kind of critical area site plan that someone else has done. Mm-hmm. In other words, a recorded wetland document. They're called different things in different municipalities, but in a lot of them, wetlands are recorded. So in an ideal world, there's 1-2 parcels away, and we can look at it and go, perfect, we're ready to rock and roll.
Absolutely.
That's with the geotech. So just to add in one more thing, with the geotechnical report, the other thing that they're going to figure out is what are you doing with the water that runs off the impervious surfaces. Yeah. Absolutely correct, sir. A lot of these newer builds are now going to require you to put some type of infiltration ditches for the gutter runoff. So I get it. I get that water has flown across that property since the dawn of time, but that's the way the code is going. They want to figure out dispersion on site for that property. Stormwater is a big deal in all development, even rural, city, commercial, all of it here in Washington.
Absolutely. I saw that with my second property, actually.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about rural. Now, process for feasibility for a city lot.
So we're looking for the same things again, just a little different. So we're going, okay, how do I do a feasibility for a city lot? Where is my sewer? Where is my access? Where's my water? Where's my power? And is my access going to limit my number of units? So the width of the access determines the number of units.
I didn't know that.
So that's one thing that's different when we're talking. That's a key factor. So if it's coming down a private road and that private road is only 30 feet wide, you're probably only going to get 6 units there. Okay, unless there's some type of a variance inside the code. You need to check with the local municipalities, but just use it as a rule of thumb. 30 feet, 4 to 6 units. 60 feet, on like Donkey Kong, that's public right away, let's rock and roll. Now, here's the other thing to know. You'll see something, and I'm going to give you an example of a development we're looking at right now here in Marysville. The development says 82nd Place Northeast, and the subject property touches it. And looking at it, it's a 60-foot wide road. It's got a cul-de-sac. It doesn't have curb, gutter, and sidewalk, but my mind just ignored that fact. Talked to the city of Marysville, and the city of Marysville says that's a private road. Oh, we have no access coming in from the west to that particular property because of that. So you need to confirm in your access, is that a public road or a private road that's actually granting access? And if it's a private road, then you go into the easement, and you would do this in a rural one too, and see if you have the right to subdivide it inside the easement or if they have cut you out in the future. An example of the language is it would say, no further subdivision of this property shall be permitted without the consent of all owners. Well, if there's 5 owners, you got to get 5 people to agree. How do you get 5 people to agree to that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
you got to give them money.
Be prepared to
pony up dollars.
Yeah.
So kind of kicking back through this again, that access becomes a big deal. The other thing that become a big deal with the utilities is the location of the utilities. So in my mind, what happens is I look down the street and I go, oh, sewer's right there. Sewer is very, very, very expensive to run. Sewer is going to be anywhere between $50 a foot to $500 a foot, depending on the size of the main and the depth of the sewer in the ground. Water's also expensive, not as expensive as the sewer. Easy way to just kind of visually detect where the sewer's at. There's a manhole right in the middle of the street. It says sewer. So generally speaking, there's a manhole right there. You know, hey, I've got sewer close to me. But if the closest manhole is 200 feet to the east, immediately in your head, you need to assume you're going to have to do a sewer line extension, and you're paying for that. What the general public does not understand about developers, we build your roads, your utilities, all of it. The government does it. We build them for them, and then we give them to the government. So as a developer, you will get the great pleasure of building roads, sidewalks, parks, extending all the utilities, and then saying, here, okay, municipality, have this back after we paid for it.
Oh, you've mentioned before that a lot of people don't budget enough time.
Yep.
Okay. So my next question is, as a new investor, would you do deals that take more than a year?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me explain. So as a new investor, you need to focus on understanding your buy box or your criteria, whatever you want to call that. Understanding how to hunt for deals and get the deals. You do not want your first project, your first investment to be a development project because it's going to take too long. Go flip a house. Get it done in 60 days. Get your money back. As a newer investor, your whole goal is to either get high cash flow or cycle your money to build more money so you can afford to do a development project. Because once again, the biggest mistake people make is they go in undercapitalized with insufficient time frames. So as a newer investor, I'm going to tell you, go flip a house, go flip a piece of land, go buy a duplex and just hold it, go buy a piece of land and maybe build something on it if it was like permit ready. But if it's something that's going to take you longer than a year, don't do it. Focus more on getting your cash reserves higher and your cash flow higher so that you can go do some of these bigger, longer projects.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
That was quick. I don't have anything else for you right at the moment.
I love it. I love it.